Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Alex Hattingh, and I head up People and Culture for Employment Hero. Thanks for joining us today as we talk about creating an effective virtual onboarding experience. So, how do you tackle introducing your new hires in this new remote world of work? Today, we'll cover the onboarding experience and how it's changed. What do new hires want? What do we do at Employment Hero? Along the lines also of some things that we've learned along the way as we've brought people on virtually. And from that, hopefully you'll get some tips and tricks about what you can do for an effective virtual induction program. Then we'll also move to a live Q&A for your questions. And if we don't get to them during the session, hopefully we can send some things out afterwards. So I would love to start by launching a poll, Jules, if you wouldn't mind launching it, just to get an understanding of how many people joining us today are actually have onboarded or hired anyone since the COVID hit us in March and most of us started working from home. Great, I'll end the poll. So we have 82% of you and 18% have not. So hopefully those people that have not yet onboarded have plans to do so next year, and hopefully you'll take something away from today's webinar. And great to see that 82% of us have been doing it, and I'm sure you've been as challenged as I have been with dealing with how to virtually onboard people. So moving on, I wanted to just touch on how management philosophy has changed during COVID. It took a decade each time for management philosophy to change, from the industrial corporation through to hierarchical leadership, collaborative management, and then we saw a massive shift when COVID hit, from company as a network in 2019 to 2020, where we're really looking at empathy, trust, resilience and growth. We're also looking to companies like Unilever, Verizon and Patagonia in the way that they approach things. People also expect a real focus on themselves as an individual and on their growth and learning. So in doing that, onboarding is more important than ever. So how do we tackle it in the new world? We're all feeling pretty uncertain at the moment, and we all want normality back. Unfortunately, we don't know when that will happen, probably when we get a vaccine. So for those wanting to hire right now, how do we make our employees feel welcome, engaged and productive? And for those 18% of you who can't hire right now, my heart absolutely goes out to you if your business is experiencing hard times. They're not normal times and they won't be for a while. However, I do hope you'll have some good takeaways from today's session. Research by the Boston Consulting Group found that onboarding has the second highest impact on employee engagement out of 22 HR practices. The top impact was actually recruitment. So would you believe that onboarding has the second highest impact on employee engagement? That is just a massive statistic. So what do we achieve by effective onboarding? You reduce time to productivity, you reduce stress on your employees and on their new managers, you reduce turnover, you develop job knowledge a lot quicker. You're also able to establish a strong relationship between a manager and a new team member a lot faster than it might otherwise be. And in our new remote world of work, it really is our opportunity to instill your culture into your new starter. They don't have that fortune of being in the office and feeling the vibe and meeting people and meeting the team and being around the kitchen and the coffee machine, etc. So we really have to figure out, how do you instill culture through virtual onboarding? So what I wanted to take you through is some tips for how you can do this the best way possible. Now, the first tip is around keeping your candidate engaged from offer to start date. I don't know how many of you have been ghosted by a candidate who has accepted and then not actually started. It's really terrible and costly. You've invested all this time, you've invested hiring managers' time and money in hiring someone for them only to not actually show up on their first day. You also want them to show up engaged and excited. So before their first day, let them know what their first day is going to look like. Let them know when they're going to receive their technology. And one of our learnings is make sure you get them their technology early enough for them to troubleshoot. We had a couple of circumstances where we had people get their technology on day one, only to kind of spend the first bit of the morning, rather than focused on induction and company overview, we were troubleshooting their laptops. Not a good experience. Now, make sure your manager calls their new hire or emails them and starts conversations around how excited they are to have them joining the team, so that you get that excitement up. And go an extra mile by sending your new starter a welcome pack. It doesn't have to have a high cost to it, and I'll show you an example later. The next step is day one. Really, really vital in this virtual environment. Again, what are you going to do? You're going to show your culture. A study done by the Aberdeen Group actually found that 86% of people make the decision to stay with a company long term within their first 6 months. So onboarding and induction in this remote world of work is so important. Remember, you can't over communicate. People do feel vulnerable when starting a new job. A new starter can feel that same anxiety that a student feels when they're switching schools. How will I make new friends when these people all know each other? A good employee onboarding program will ease all of those jitters. And also keep in mind, pre-COVID, your manager could frequently stop at a new person's desk to see how they're doing. Or if they're in a different office, they could ask the rest of the team through observation how they're doing. Now managers need to stay connected in new ways. It's all through email, chat, and video conferencing. So keep in mind that your communication should cover both the practical, here's what you need to do today, and here's the how you do it. However, we also have to keep in mind that the communication needs to be social as well. So what should day one really look like in this virtual world of onboarding? The manager should start the morning by emailing, messaging, or a short video call with the employee to make them feel welcome. Hi, Alex, just wanted to say welcome. I really hope you enjoy the company induction that's starting in 10 minutes. And then you should have a company induction lasting anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And you need to do that over video to make sure it is interactive and engaging and live. Have your manager arrange a virtual team lunch so that it feels casual and your new team member can meet the team before it being a formal team meeting. And also make sure there is a manager one-on-one scheduled for day one in this virtual world. Next up is your company induction. What should that look like? It's your opportunity to emphasize your company's purpose, culture, and values. According to a LinkedIn survey of over 3,000 professionals, they found that 70% of people said they would actually leave a leading company if it had a bad culture. And 71% said they would take a pay cut to work for a company that shares their values and has a mission they believe in. These are really, really compelling statistics as to why you need to focus on your purpose, your values, and your mission during your company overview. Here's an example of what your content should look like. Always start with an icebreaker and introductions, even if it's just a one-on-one. If you Google icebreakers, you can come up with some great ideas. A really good example is, let's go around the table, introduce yourselves, where did you come from? Why are you excited to be here? And show us the most recent photo on your phone and tell us the reason behind that photo. That just gets it a little bit personal. And always remember to introduce yourself. Then move on to the company purpose or mission, the why, so that each individual new starter can understand how their role contributes to the company overall and the company's purpose. Always touch on the history. Next up, values and behaviours. Then do a spotlight on the leadership team. You want your new starter to understand who each person is and a little bit of a background on each leadership team member. Then cover the teams and the organisational structure overview. Remember, your new starter no longer can see people and teams in the office on a day-to-day basis. It's really important that they understand how their role and their team fits into the company overall. Cover your products and what you sell. Cover your annual company objectives and key results or goals. Again, you want each new starter to understand how their own OKRs and their own goals fit into the broader company goals and the broader company purpose. Cover your benefits and your perks. And then most recently, we've introduced tips on working remotely and how to use communication tools. And that's based on feedback from new starters, as well as us starting to see people feeling that they had to be glued to their computer all day. So reminders on taking breaks during the day, schedule them in your calendar, update your Slack status or your team status, those types of tips that help to make people effective and productive. Next is the role of the manager or the hiring manager, who is now the manager. So the role of the manager hasn't changed for onboarding as we work remotely. It's the how that's changed. So start with a handwritten welcome card in their welcome pack. It really goes a long way to not just making a new employee feel welcome, but it gets them excited about joining a new team and a manager that's actually engaged. Have your manager send an email the day prior stating how excited they are to have your newbie joining the team. Reiterate the first virtual meeting start time so they're ready with their technology, and just a tip on what to wear. I mean, that can take a lot of nerves away from people. You know, Alex, you're starting tomorrow. Feel free to wear a t-shirt. We're not overly formal. Or people do get dressed up and they are a little bit formal for their Zoom calls. So I recommend that you go, business casual. Just giving them that reassurance can really help. Select a buddy on the team for a virtual coffee once a week for the first few months. It gives your new hire a safe person in the team where they can ask questions, not in a team environment, and you're also creating a strong connection between two people on your team. Next up is the all-important manager one-on-one. So, according to Gallup, when you have regularly scheduled meetings with a manager, your employees are more engaged. So managers who regularly meet with their employees almost tripled the level of employee engagement. That's how important regularly scheduled one-on-ones are. For those of you new to what the concept of a one-on-one is, it's a scheduled meeting in your calendar, also in your mental map, for an open-ended and anticipated conversation between the manager and the employee. So it's not like status reports or tactical meetings. It's a place for coaching and mentorship, giving context, even allowing your employee to vent. It goes way beyond that old school open door policy. It actually dedicates time on a regular cadence for teammates and their managers to connect and communicate. So, to make it effective in this new remote world of work, try to make the first one-on-one more casual on their first day. So suggest having it as labeled over a coffee or a tea, which, believe it or not, you actually can do virtually, and it does make the meeting or the one-on-one feel a lot more casual. And this first one-on-one is all about getting to know the employee. It's about them. And letting them share with the manager, how are you feeling is a good question to ask. What's on your mind? Ask your new employee, have there been any surprises so far? Have the manager cover the objectives of the new hire's role, as well as perhaps their own objectives as a manager. And then have the manager talk about their own management style so the new employee can understand what to expect. A really good example might be, before we meet every week in our one-on-one, I expect our one-on-one template to be filled out so that I have all the talking points ahead of time. That way, they know what's expected of them. And most importantly, if you're a manager, listen to what's being said. It's really important to make sure your employees feel heard, safe, and empowered. And try to delve into a few personal things as well. How do you like to be recognized? You might ask about family. You might ask how they've been dealing with remote working in their prior job. And questions that just get to the bottom of who this new person is that's reporting to you as a manager. Skip level one-on-ones. This also might be a new concept to some people. So before we were thrown into the remote world of work, your team members had regular exposure to your own manager. A skip level one-on-one with your manager is really important. It will establish a relationship between your new team member and your manager. So schedule it within the first 3 weeks, not week one. That's a little scary and a little overwhelming. Let your new team member know what it's all about. It's just about getting to know your manager, who is the leader one up. Let your manager know that it is just a check-in and a get to know you for the new team member. So it's an open discussion. Again, you might want to label it as a virtual catch-up over coffee rather than a formal one-on-one. Establishing this one-on-one relationship between a new team member and a manager one level up is really, really important to engaging your new employee, to having them understand the dynamics of the broader team as well, and just giving them that exposure to someone who's one level up is really important. Next up, you need to put some effort into announcing your new team members. It's absolutely fantastic that we have someone new joining and they feel great meeting the rest of the team. However, it's vital not just that they feel announced to the rest of the organisation, it's also vital for the rest of your organisation to have that transparent communication around who the new person is who started with you that day, or you might even do it the next day. We use a simple one-pager to introduce our new team members with a little bit of a background about them, where they've worked, and why they're excited to join our company. Now, if you're introducing a senior team member, so a senior leader, I recommend doing a video. This makes it more personal, and you're also exposing your entire organisation to the face and the voice of the new senior leader. We've found that that's worked really well at Employment Hero. And then, if you have an all hands or a town hall, reintroduce and celebrate your new team members so that you're again reinforcing in this virtual world who's new to the organisation, so everyone knows who they are, what team they're in, and who they report to. Next up is a CEO session. Now, this is not always easy, and you don't have to do it every week. You could do it monthly. You could even do it quarterly if you're not hiring at scale. And this can't be a video, as that's really impersonal. In this virtual world, you need a session that's engaging and allows your new employees for Q&A. It also is a forum for your CEO to get to know new team members, which is great. Ben Thompson, our CEO, does a fantastic session where he uses icebreakers. He again reinforces the purpose of our company, our values, our history, the purpose behind why he started Employment Hero, and our new team members walk away with a real sense of engagement, and we've reinforced all of those messages that we gave on day one. Next up is feedback, and this is feedback on your virtual onboarding experience. So it's new to most of us, and we can all learn and improve. So around the 2-week mark after your new starters have started, ask for feedback, and we can certainly send you a sample survey that we use. Now, remember to act on your feedback, because employees aren't going to continue giving feedback if you don't actually act on it. So start by acknowledging what you've heard, and then get a plan in place to improve on what you've heard. We've been surveying our new team members for feedback, and we've iterated and taken action based on their input. The best way to understand how your new employees are ramping up and onboarding is to ask them directly. So we thought we'd go through what we do here at Employment Hero, a few of the learnings we've had, so that hopefully you can pick up some tips to make your virtual onboarding as effective as it can be. To start with, of course, we use Employment Hero to onboard our new employees. What does that look like? It's paperless. Apologies, that's my fire alarm going off. So working virtually, I'll just give it 1 second. Sorry, guys. As you can see, working from home is just like the office. It'll be 2 seconds. Just like a fire drill at work. Apologies, I live in an apartment. As you'll see, this picture before the alarm goes off is our actual system, which is paperless and very engaging for new hires. So I have the ability to send a contract to a new hire within 5 minutes of the hiring manager making the verbal offer. The employee receives the contract through email and then goes through a series of onboarding, such as reading policies and reviewing them, all online. submitting their tax file number to the ATO directly online, no forms. So it's absolutely fabulous and a great experience for our people, especially to be able to read policies and have all of those things done and completed before their first day. I'll just hold for 1 minute. These are our welcome packs. There might be one more announcement in 1 second, and I apologize. So we brainstormed once we started working from home. We had 3 people who had come into our office and had experienced our culture and vibe and were so excited to come on board. And we took a step back and kind of said, oh, wow, we have to onboard these people virtually. How are we going to showcase our culture, make them feel welcome and excited? So we got together and brainstormed, and our amazing head of Vibe, Esther, came up with lots of ideas, as did we. So we started with a You're a Hero. That is a personalized card from their manager, which has a message that is pasted in there and emailed. So pasted in there physically, so they actually get the card from the manager. There's a welcome pack with all of their login details, passwords, how do they troubleshoot with technology. There's swag. I'll move over to the actual content. There's also swag that we have in there. So we do t-shirts and branded notebooks. We also put some fun things in there, can of Corona or a cider or a gin and tonic for them to have at their first all hands happy hour. Stickers, branded coasters. We put all of the stationery that they might need. Now the content we put in our welcome pack as well is everything printed so that our new employees are across this before they start. And that's our values, the welcome letter that I mentioned, our employee assistance program flyer and card, what to do if you feel unwell, instructions as to how to get onto our Bria mobile app. We have an OKR playbook or handbook, a remote first playbook, which shows them the tools and tricks of communication in working in this remote world. And then that all important welcome card with a personalized note from their manager. And we've had really amazing feedback. Again, this is not a huge cost to be doing this. Also, sending out an induction schedule really helps your new employees feel at ease about what their first day and week looks like. You can also do this through Google Calendar and let the employee know to log on before their first day and look at their calendar, because all of the meetings have been pre-booked if you don't have the resources to put together an actual induction schedule. First day induction, again, that's going to be a Zoom meeting, and you're going to be showcasing your culture, going over your purpose, your history, your leadership team, and everything that I covered in what content should be covered in a company overview. You then need to announce your new team members, and we do this in 3 ways. We use Employment Hero through our announcements notification section. You'll see there I'm welcoming 5 people who started yesterday. Then we send out a more extensive introduction, which gives a bit of a background about the person, a link to their LinkedIn profile, so if someone wants to look up where they've worked before, they can, and then why are they excited about joining Employment Hero. As mentioned, we then reintroduce and celebrate our new hires and new team members at our weekly all hands. We also ask them to unmute, say a quick hello, and introduce themselves, not at length to make them feel uncomfortable. And I certainly check in with them to see if they just want to say hi or if they actually want to introduce themselves. Going back to the point I made earlier about senior leaders, if you're having a senior leader join the team, for example, we had a marketing director join, he actually introduced himself, gave a little bit of info about how his experience was in joining, as well as what his plans were going forward. We also introduced a virtual spotlight and get to know you session. Now, this is all about feedback. We were getting feedback from the rest of the company that they felt like they weren't getting to know the new hires as they would in the office. They weren't running into them in the kitchen. They didn't get to see them around at Friday afternoon drinks or at the all hands. So we introduced this virtual spotlight and get to know you session, and we can certainly send these questions out. They're really fun. Do you have a pet? What are you binge watching at the moment? If you had a yacht, what would you name it? If you were to be part of a fictional family, what family would it be and why? And what we've been doing with this is focusing on teams as well as new people. And we start the session by asking the person what their OKRs or objectives are so that the rest of the company understands what the new team member is there to do and how it relates to the overall company purpose. We also provide a work from home allowance. This has been a real hit for our new hires because we want them to be set up as well and as ergonomically as possible. And that might involve, we provide monitors and laptops and all the basics, keyboard, mouse, etc. However, this might involve purchasing a proper office chair or a proper office desk. And this is because when we started working from home, we allowed current employees to take a lot of their equipment, including their chairs, home with them. This allows new employees to really set themselves up to succeed in the best way possible, and we've gotten great feedback from it. So, how do we keep the energy up? Taking it just a step further with a few more tips for you. Always remember with Zoom calls or any kind of video calls on Slack, turn videos on. Have OKRs or goals. Make sure your new employees within their first month have goals so they know how their role aligns to the company's overall goal. Reward and recognition and celebrations are so important, especially for new employees. Make sure you celebrate them simply joining the company and ask them or have their manager ask them how they like to be recognized. Some of us like a public shout out at an all hands. Others would just prefer it to be over Slack or over Employment Hero in announcements because they're more introverted. Use surveys to ask for feedback. Make sure your managers are having regular cadence of one-on-ones. Theme up your all hands. New hires love that. They love to get involved in it. Try having a virtual Hangouts channel. You might do that a couple of days a week where people might just drop in if they're wanting to see other team members and create that social connection. So if you have a cohort of new hires, throw in a 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoon get to know you session and use those questions that we'll send out to you. It really is fun and interactive. Make sure you use the tools you have like Slack or Teams to create some social channels. It keeps the day fun. We have an animals being cute channel. We have a doppelgangers channel. We have all sorts of channels. Now, people can mute them if they find them too noisy. For a lot of people though, it breaks up the day. And for new hires especially, they can jump in and get involved, and it can really help form some relationships virtually that they may not otherwise form, especially if they're an animal lover. Most recently, we also introduced something that is really fantastic, and that's a monthly leadership session with our CEO, with leadership plus their direct reports. So take Ben Thompson, our CEO, take his direct report, Kevin Rawlings, and then it's with Tasman as well, the marketing director, and everyone across the entire organization. It's for an hour and a half monthly on a Friday morning, and it's just helping to have that connection with the CEO and the leadership team across the entire organization. It's really a Q&A session and an update session, and it allows all those leaders one level below your CEO to have exposure on a monthly cadence with the CEO to get their chance to talk about what they're working on. What are they celebrating? What are they really happy about? Where are the roadblocks? And we've found it to be really, really effective. And how can we make micro interactions happen in the virtual world? Do a brainstorming session with your team. Is it that you introduce donuts on Slack to team up various people outside other teams for virtual coffees? There are all sorts of ways to do this. And then online also, are there things you can do for celebrations? We're doing drag queen bingo, for example, this Friday. We have done the amazing race and a trivia night. There are lots of things online that are not at a big expense. It was $30 per person to do the amazing race, and we got a lot of great feedback, and we were zoomed into rooms with teams that were not our own, and then zoomed back to the broader company to give our answers in clusters of 10 answers per question. So takeaways and next steps. Train your managers. Talk to them about how important onboarding is. Give them some of the statistics I've given you today from the Aberdeen group. 86% of people decide on the first day if they're going to stay with the company for 6 months or longer. The LinkedIn data, 71% of people would leave a company if they weren't aligned to the purpose and they didn't think it had a great culture. So onboarding virtually, you have to put the time and the effort into it. Why don't you create a workflow of events that need to be scheduled for all of your new starters so that it's there as a blueprint? Once someone signs a contract, you know exactly what you need to do. Start putting together that welcome packet. Start putting together their schedule for their new hire. And get creative with your welcome packs like we have. We've just gotten such good feedback on how welcome people feel, all thanks to Esther Mitchell, our Chief of Vibe. Pull together a company induction and overview. I went through kind of the basic topics you should cover during that session, and just get started. Even if you get started and your first virtual onboarding isn't great, ask for feedback so that you can iterate and get better, and say to your new employees on their first day, hey, we're a bit new to this, so please forgive us if it's not perfect. We're looking forward to your feedback because we're going to improve and iterate as we keep going through the process and bring on our next set of new hires. So after this session, we'll be emailing you. We'll email this slide deck out. We're also going to email you a virtual onboarding schedule template, a remote onboarding checklist, as well as an effective one-on-ones bundle. So I will stop sharing my screen and move over to Q&A if there are any. Yes, we do have a few here. Sorry, I've just got a few technical difficulties with my screen. Again, apologies for the fire alarm. Okay, Q&A. First question, what do you think the best person to lead a company induction day one? HR, the manager, the CEO, or the founder? So look, it's a bit much of an ask to ask the CEO or founder to do it unless you are doing a batch induction of say 50 people and the CEO is open to doing it. It's best to have people and culture do the company induction and overview, and then have the manager own the rest of their first day. So the virtual team lunch and a manager one-on-one. Use the CEO as a session a bit further down the track, not just to engage employees. They've been there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So they've had the chance to get their head around the purpose. So your CEO is instilling the purpose again, reiterating the company values, the history, and the personal story behind what he's doing, as well as the company goals. By then, your employees have the information that they need to be asking questions and to interact intelligently with your CEO. So it's a much better use of both the employee's time as well as the CEO if you do that a bit further down the track and have people and culture own that first day along with the new manager. We have another question here. We are keen to see how it is managed in the HR platform, creating the onboarding checklist. How do you manage the tasks and pushing out to managers and admins? Oh, that's a great question. So a bit biased. We do have the most wonderful system with Employment Hero. You can go in and make your own checklists for both onboarding and offboarding. And so I have one, for example, that is triggered and goes to Esther, our head of Vibe, when someone has signed their contract and they're ready to go. And that includes creating the welcome pack, scheduling them in, ordering their technology to be delivered to their home, everything that needs to be covered. And then also we have one going to our systems manager to set up a salesperson, for example, in Salesforce. And it's all done through your company notifications, and you can individualize who the checklists go to. Same with offboarding. You can do offboarding tasks for when an employee leaves. An example might be, again, triggering something to your systems people to make sure that all of their systems access is shut down. We have another question from Sharon. Do you have some interesting ways of having a group function online to keep everyone engaged and feeling connected? Yeah, Sharon, that get to know you session, I would absolutely take those questions and try if you can to schedule it at a reasonable hour, 4 p.m. or 4:30 or 5 p.m. if you want to make it a happy hour. And if you don't have new employees, the spotlight doesn't have to be on new employees. The spotlight might be on the leadership team. They are really funny, engaging questions to throw to your leadership team for the rest of the company to learn more about the leaders in the company. And it's something that you probably wouldn't do in the old world of the physical workplace. So it's a really, really fantastic tool. There are also trivia nights if you've got the budget. The Amazing Race is a great one. And then we're doing Drag Queen Bingo this Friday. If you want to Google that one as well, that's at a very low cost. Yes, we can definitely email out the sample survey for new hires, which is part of our custom survey tools in the system. A question from Jessica. Can you share who you use for the welcome packs? Oh, our wonderful Esther puts together our welcome packs. We may look at outsourcing if we start to scale at a point where we can't scale, if that makes sense. So at the moment, Esther's home office looks like an Employment Hero shop. It has kind of everything she needs to put in the welcome packs, all the t-shirts, the notebooks, and then the actual welcome pack, which has our values and the printouts of our remote first workbook, our OKR playbook, etc. All of those are sitting in Esther's place and she puts them together. She's an absolute gem. And the next question again from, oh no, that one's from Jessica, from Anonymous. The best way to virtually onboard if you don't have a cohort joining at the same time, so 1 or 2 employees. Yeah, so this is a great question and something that you do tackle with. You have to go back to those statistics around the importance of onboarding, and more so in this virtual world, it's the way you can display your culture. It's the way that you can get your values and your purpose instilled. So you do just have to, unfortunately, suck it up and take the time, even if it's a one-on-one. If possible though, and you do have someone starting and then you know you've got someone starting the week after, try and do them together because they almost become new starter buddies, if that makes sense, and they do feel like they have someone that they have started with. So it is much better if you can try and do a minimum of 2 people. Anonymous, is the expense form available through EH or is it a separate program? That's something that we just simply created in Google templates, and you can create it in Microsoft as well. It's a simple form where someone uploads the receipt and then it goes to the manager for approval, and then it workflows through to finance for reimbursing. That's a great suggestion for the product team though, so thank you. A question from Elise. What have you done about staff that want to work from home and the office? Do you pay for setup in the 2 locations? Great question, Elise. So what we've done with our 441 Kent Street hub is that we have made no one has their own desk. We are going to do a refurbishment, but we're now all about socially connecting and being remote first, which is partly why we've provided that reimbursement and expense so that people are fully set up at home to work as they are. And at the moment we have a number of desks that are set up with monitors, and so you can just plug in your laptop and you can work with 2. We have a number of desks that we haven't yet had the chance to set up in that manner. Our future vision though is that we will have every single desk set up with both a monitor and a plug-in for a laptop. We will have an app of some kind where people can book desks to come in, and that's when we'll use it to socially connect, and we will actually provide both breakfast and lunch in the office. Great question though. We do not have individual setups in both. People are very understanding that if they want to go into the office, they either know which desk they want to book, and that is one that's set up ready to go, or they're happy to work from their laptop for the day. Nerida asks, how level of working from home allowance are you providing? Different levels within the organisation. Nerida, no, we very much believe in being consistent across the board. So for employees who were with us before COVID and had the ability to take home a chair and a monitor and all sorts of things, we gave them a stipend of $500. For new employees who didn't have the fortune of taking company property, we're giving them $1,000 to spend on their work from home needs. Can you please let us know which companies you use for your successful team events? So the Amazing Race we used for the trivia event. They also included a few really great activities that were actually around the Amazing Race. For example, Alex, you've got 30 seconds to collect a Monopoly board game and crack an egg into a glass. And they were really, really fun. It was $30 per person. It took an hour. And again, it was great. It zoomed us into rooms with people that we don't normally work with. We would all work together on our answers, and then it would zoom us back to the entire company. So it was a lot of fun. The other one is Drag Queen Bingo, which we're using this Friday. Sophie asked the question, how do we use Slack? So Sophie, if you go to YouTube and type that in, an absolutely fantastic video will come up around how you use Slack. And that is, you have channels for communications for teams. So we have product, marketing, sales, people and culture. You have closed channels for teams. So for example, my team use a channel that only my team can access. And then you have direct messages. So I can message Julia in marketing as I did this morning, and it automatically pops up on hers. And it's really good because you can mute channels or you can have channels up the whole time. So we just have a couple more questions. I forgot to mention we have to finish today at 10:45. So any questions that we don't get to, we can certainly write up a blog and send out to you. We have an anonymous question here, which is, can you elaborate on your all hands meeting? Absolutely. So we used to do an all hands every second week when we were all in the office before COVID. When COVID hit, we moved to a cadence of a weekly all hands to make sure we were communicating on a regular basis. So sometimes a team will give an update on their stats and what they're working on. They'll give an update on their OKRs, the number of support tickets they're working on, what their CSATs are, etc., so that teams are getting to understand what other teams are doing in this virtual world. We celebrate new hires. We celebrate milestones like anniversaries. We celebrate really great work done by the marketing team, for example, with the blogs and all of the content that they're putting out. We do shout out or thank a hero at the very end, which gives everyone the opportunity to verbally shout out and thank people in this virtual environment. And I know it goes a long way because I hear from a lot of people about how they're like, oh, wow, that person recognized me. They realized that I went above and beyond this week. And we call out people who have received Values Champion Awards to make sure we're reiterating not only our values, but we're re-recognizing people for all of the great work that they're doing. We have what will be our last question just due to our timing today, and that's from Anonymous. What tips do you have for those in the disability industry where staff work all different shifts? So definitely recording your all hands or any of those all important meetings so that people can watch them on off hours. A really good example might be if you're an international company and you're working across time zones, it's absolutely impossible to hold a live all hands that every single region can dial into. So a really good example when I used to work for Google is that Mountain View would record their headquartered all hands, which would be occurring on a Saturday morning APAC time. But then on Monday, we would replay that video at lunchtime so that anyone in APAC could join to watch the recorded all hands to get that information from headquarters. We also held our local all hands. But videoing and having a central place where you keep communications and important things like marketing collateral or overviews of products or sales resources or sales playbooks, having those in a central directory where everyone can access them at any time makes a really big difference. And one last question from an anonymous attendee. How often should you do normal one-on-ones with direct reports and then skip level? I would recommend one-on-ones on a weekly basis. You don't always have to use the full 45 minutes. It's just good to have it in the calendar. Again, it's also in your mental map. And so it's just there. Now, if you don't have an agenda because you've been talking to this particular direct report all week and 20 times a day, you can say, hey, Alex, why don't we use this week's one-on-one to go for a walk? We've, video fatigued. So let's jump on our mobile and let's each walk around the block of our own suburbs and just have a 10 or 20 minute catch up. In terms of skip level, I would recommend on a quarterly basis that you do skip level or just every 6 months. But for a new employee, make sure it's within that first kind of 3 weeks to 1 month. New to EH and haven't looked into Slack from Jane. Does EH integrate into Teams or Skype in the same way? We don't yet. It's on the product roadmap though, Jane, to integrate those tools, and we have had feedback from clients that they would like that interaction. Okay, guys, we're going to have to end it there. So what we'll do, I think, is Julia and I will work to pull out any questions with themes and send you guys answers on that. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that you gained some tips onto how to virtually onboard your people in the most effective manner. Have a really fantastic Thursday, everyone, and I look forward to joining you for our next webinar. Thank you. Bye.